So what makes good writing? Well, the answer is it depends on the style that's expected. Fiction, journalism, science, they all have different styles, and so does business writing. In business writing, good writing comes from brevity and clarity. When your writing is short and simple, you're showing confidence. You're showing empathy for the reader. You're reducing the chances of miscommunication, and you're cutting down on the back and forth questions that might ensue. This shows empathy for your reader and builds credibility. And we know that credibility gets you more of what you want. In this video, I'm going to discuss ways that you can make your business messages as clear as possible. We're going to focus on 3 helpful strategies that are going to improve the clarity of your writing. First, use active voice. Second, use precise wording. And third, use parallel structure. First, use active voice. In business writing, we almost always use active voice. This is where the subject of the sentence is performing the action. For example, Elizabeth recommended the pizza. Usually, we speak in passive voice though, because being clear is hard. So we write in passive voice, but this confuses readers because it's often very wordy and it's not clear who's doing what to whom. In passive voice, the subject is not necessarily performing the action. For example, the pizza was recommended by Elizabeth. Kind of weird, right? So how can you find passive voice in your own writing? My favorite trick is to go through during the polishing phase. Underline all of the verbs that I've written. And if I can put by zombies after a verb, it means I'm using passive voice. The pizza was recommended by zombies, passive voice. Now, sometimes we actually want to be passive on purpose in business messages, especially when we're communicating negative information. For example, instead of saying, your writing is unclear, we could say, the writing could be improved by using active voice. It's passive on purpose, which shows more empathy. Second, you want to use precise wording. You want to use strong verbs and concrete nouns. For example, instead of saying a change in profits, say a 15% spike in profits. It's much more precise and it's also stronger. We want to avoid $100 words when a $5 word could do. Now, we want to show our audience that we're smart, and a lot of times that means we break out that thesaurus. But a lot of times when we're using $100 words, we're overly complicating things. Remember, we want to keep it as simple as possible. Instead of saying something like cogitation, just say thought. We also want to delete any hedging or exuberance from our writing. Hedging words and phrases are things like I think, I feel, I believe that this is. You can eliminate those words. I know you think this because I'm reading it, right? Hedging detracts from the confidence of our writing. Exuberance is when we use words like extremely or absolutely. They don't really add any value. If I say extremely necessary, that's redundant. We take out the exuberance and just say necessary. We also want to delete any cliches or really broad generalizations. For example, thanks in advance for your response is a cliche. You could just say thank you. Or in today's global society. That really doesn't mean anything. It's such a broad generalization, so we can take it out. Third, we want to use parallel structure. Parallelism is when you group similar ideas with similar structure. We use parallel structure in business writing in 3 ways. First, on the sentence level, with words and phrasing. For example, you want to say, we notified all employees, customers, and vendors, instead of, we notified everyone who works here, customers, and vendors. On the list level, we use parallel structure with words and formatting. For example, let's say you start one bullet in a list with an action verb. All of the bullets should start with an action verb for parallel structure. If you're giving a set of instructions, you want to say, first, second, third, not first, next, last. The third way we can use parallel structure in business writing is on the document level with key ideas. For example, if you say, in this proposal, we're going to present 3 problems and then 3 solutions, the reader is going to expect to read about the first problem and then the first solution, the second problem and the second solution, and then the third problem and the third solution. Did you notice how I phrased all the tips in this section? Each one is 3 words long and it starts with the action verb use. That's parallel structure in action. So as a review, we want to use active voice, precise wording, and parallel structure to improve the clarity of our writing. This is going to cut down on miscommunication. We're going to persuade the reader by making it easier for them to understand. And we're going to project confidence in what we're writing.